I used to think I had my life figured out. At 27, I was finally living the kind of life I'd dreamed of as a teenager. A steady job I didn't hate, a cozy little apartment in the city, and a boyfriend who, at least on the surface, seemed like the perfect partner. His name was Ethan. And for nearly 4 years, I truly believed he was my person. We met in the most cliché way possible at a friend's birthday party. Both of us reaching for the last slice of pizza at the same time. He'd laughed, offered it to me, and spent the rest of the night making me feel like I was the only person in the room. He wasn't just charming. He was thoughtful. Flowers on random Wednesdays, texts that said good luck before work meetings, forehead kisses when I was too tired to get out of bed. And for a long time, I convinced myself that was enough. That he was enough. Looking back now, I see the signs, the subtle shifts in behavior, the small inconsistencies, but at the time, love made me blind. Our relationship wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was steady, comfortable, predictable. And maybe that's why I ignored the red flags when they first appeared. The first crack it started with his phone. Ethan was never the type to guard his phone like it contained national secrets. In fact, he used to leave it on the kitchen counter all the time. But about a year ago, that changed. One night, we were watching a movie on the couch. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly and flipped it face down. "Who's that?" I asked casually. "Just work," he said. Too quickly. Too defensive, I brushed it off. Everyone deserves a bit of privacy, right? But the same thing happened again and again. Then suddenly his phone had a new passcode. "Just updating my security," he said with a shrug. It was such a small thing, but it felt off. I tried to talk myself out of overthinking. "You're just being paranoid. Don't ruin a good thing over nothing." But deep down, something felt wrong. Shifts and excuses. It wasn't just the phone. He started working late. First, once a week. Then 3. Then nearly every night. "Big project," he'd say, kissing my forehead as he left the apartment. And maybe I would have believed him if he didn't come home smelling like perfume. Not mine. Once I asked about it. He laughed it off. "Some of the women at the office wear too much. It's not a big deal." It was such a casual, well-rehearsed excuse that I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to believe him. The truth is, I was terrified of what I might find if I started digging. And sometimes, pretending everything is fine feels safer than facing the storm. A flicker of doubt, the moment everything started unraveling, wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a big fight or a caught in act moment. It was a tiny, insignificant detail. One Saturday, Ethan said he was going on a guy's trip, a spontaneous weekend getaway with 2 of his college friends. He packed a small bag, kissed me goodbye, left with that same charming smile I'd fallen for 4 years ago. But 2 days later, I saw a photo online. It was buried deep in a mutual friend's story. A group shot at a rooftop bar, and their clearest day was Ethan. Not with his guy friends, but with a woman I'd never seen before. Her arm was around his waist. His hand was on her lower back. I stared at that photo until my phone screen dimmed. My heart didn't break right then. It shattered. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. The calm before the confrontation, he came home Sunday night. Smiling, tired, telling stories about inside jokes from the trip. I listened, nodding, pretending, all the while replaying that photo in my mind. I could have exploded. I could have screamed. But instead, I chose silence. Why? Because something in me shifted that night. I realized I didn't want to just catch him. I wanted to understand how deep this betrayal went. I wanted the truth, all of it, before I decided what to do next. And deep down, another part of me, a part I didn't know existed, wanted more than just the truth. I wanted justice, the kind of justice he'd never forget. If he thought he could lie to me this easily, I remember thinking, then he's about to learn just how wrong he is. What I didn't know then was that this wasn't just a betrayal. It was the beginning of a story that would change both our lives forever. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake next to Ethan, staring at the ceiling while he slept peacefully, his arm draped over me like nothing was wrong. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. I didn't know the man lying next to me anymore. The Ethan I fell in love with, the one who sent me good morning texts and brought me coffee in bed, was gone. The man next to me was a stranger who lied with a straight face and thought I'd never notice. But he was wrong. And I was about to prove it. Playing Detective V started small. I didn't want to tip him off. The first thing I did was check our shared calendar. Ethan wasn't the most organized person, so I handled most of the scheduling, birthdays, appointments, even his work events. But lately, there were gaps. Entire weekends with no notes, no details, nothing. Then I checked his social media. He wasn't posting anything suspicious, but his likes told a different story. A woman I'd never heard of appeared over and over again. Selfies, vacation photos, even gym check-ins. And every single time, Ethan was there in the likes, sometimes even leaving a comment. The name was Vanessa. And as I scrolled deeper into her profile, I felt my stomach turn. There were pictures of her holding a man's hand at a cafe. A blurry mirror selfie of someone standing behind her, wearing the same jacket Ethan owned. And then the worst one, a story highlight titled "My Person." The man's face was never fully shown. But I knew it was him. The test I needed confirmation, undeniable proof. So I came up with a plan. One Friday evening, I told Ethan I was going to visit my parents for the weekend. I even packed an overnight bag and left the apartment like normal. But instead of heading to my parents' house, I drove 2 streets over, parked, and waited. At 8:17 p.m., he left the apartment. At 8:36, he met Vanessa at a restaurant downtown. I watched them through the window from my car. The way he leaned across the table to brush her hair behind her ear. The way she laughed and touched his arm. My chest burned with anger, but I didn't cry. Not this time, because now I wasn't a heartbroken girlfriend. I was a woman collecting evidence. The first confrontation when he came home that night was waiting for him. "Hey, you're back early," he said, kicking off his shoes. "How were your parents? Did Vanessa enjoy dinner?" I asked calmly. The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about." I held up my phone. Photos, time-stamped, crystal clear. Him and Vanessa at dinner. Him holding her hand. Him walking her to her car. His excuses were pathetic. "She's just a friend. It's complicated. It's not what it looks like." But when I asked him point blank, "Are you cheating on me?" he said nothing. He just stared at the floor. And that silence was louder than any confession. "I want you out," I said, my voice steady but shaking inside. "Tonight?" But instead of leaving, he begged. He said it was a mistake. He said it was a moment of weakness. He said he still loved me, and like a fool, I almost believed him. The lie I wanted to believe. I told him I needed space. He moved into a friend's place temporarily, and for 2 weeks, we barely spoke. I used that time to think, or at least I told myself I was thinking. The truth was, I was bargaining with my own heart. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe he really does love me. Maybe we can fix this. And when he showed up at my door with flowers, crying and promising he'd change, I made the mistake that so many of us make. I took him back. It was conditional, of course. He had to cut off all contact with Vanessa. We had to go to couples therapy. And most importantly, there could be no more secrets. He agreed to everything. And for a while, he really did seem like a changed man. But liars don't stop lying just because they're caught. They just get better at it. The double life 3 months later. Things seemed perfect. We were laughing again, going on dates, even talking about moving to a bigger apartment. It felt like we had survived the storm. But one night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I picked it up. The message on the screen froze me where I stood. "I miss you. Can't stop thinking about last night." 5. It was her again. Vanessa. All that therapy. All those promises. All those tears. Lies. Every single word of it. I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But my mind was crystal clear. This wasn't love. This was manipulation. And I was done being the fool. A new kind of plan. I didn't confront him this time. I didn't throw the phone or scream or demand answers. Because I knew screaming wouldn't change anything, no. This time, it's going to end it on my terms. I spent the next month carefully, quietly planning. I made copies of everything, text messages, photos, screenshots, even therapy notes where he admitted to cheating. I gathered every piece of proof I could find. And while he believed our relationship was back on track, I was preparing the perfect exit. I canceled our apartment lease renewal without telling him. I moved half my savings into a separate account. I even started therapy on my own, not to save the relationship, but to prepare for the life I was about to reclaim. And then when the timing was right, I set the stage for the final act. He thinks he's playing me, I told myself one night as I watched him sleep. But he has no idea the game is about to end. I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to walk away in a way he would never forget. It's funny how betrayal changes you. Before all of this, I was the kind of person who believed in second chances. I believed people could change if they were truly sorry. But after everything Ethan did, after every lie, every manipulation, every tear I wasted, that part of me was gone. I wasn't interested in forgiveness anymore. I was interested in justice. And justice, I decided, was going to look a lot like revenge. Playing the long game, I didn't want some dramatic, impulsive outburst. I didn't want to throw his clothes out the window or post screenshots online. That would have been too easy and too temporary, no. I wanted something that would stay with him, something that would make him question why he ever thought betraying me was a good idea. The first step was pretending everything was fine. I smiled more. I initiated dates. I even started planning a surprise weekend getaway for us. On the surface, I was the picture of a loving, forgiving girlfriend. And Ethan, he fell for it completely. He probably thought I was naive, that I was weak, that I'd forgotten. But the truth was, every smile, every I love you, every kiss goodnight, it was all part of the plan, the discovery that changed everything then. Something happened that accelerated everything. One afternoon while Ethan was at work, I was scrolling through Vanessa's Instagram again, not because I was jealous, but because I was curious, and that's when I found it. A photo from a weekend trip I knew nothing about. The two of them at a cabin in the mountains. The same weekend Ethan had told me he was visiting his cousin out of town. But what caught my eye wasn't the picture, it was the comments. One of Vanessa's friends had written, "You two are seriously goals." A ring emoji. I clicked on Vanessa's profile again, and this time noticed something I had missed before, a subtle sparkle on her left hand in a recent photo. A ring dot. It hit me like a punch to the chest. Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was building a second life. He was planning a future with her while still sleeping next to me, and that was the final straw. Reclaiming my power, I realized then that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about me, about reclaiming every piece of my dignity, my confidence, and my future that he had tried to break. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to let him know I knew. I was going to dismantle his world carefully, quietly, and piece by piece until he had nothing left. Step 1. Financial freedom within, and I shared a few financial responsibilities. The lease, utilities, and a small joint savings account we had started for a future trip. That account had over $8,000 in it, most of which I had contributed. The first thing I did was transfer my portion into a private account. I left behind exactly half of his contributions, not a penny more. I even documented the transactions with receipts and statements, just in case he tried to claim otherwise. Then I called the bank and removed my name from the joint account. When that was done, I tackled the apartment. I contacted the landlord, explained the situation, and arranged to remove my name from the lease at the next renewal date, which was only 6 weeks away. By the time he realized what I'd done, I'd have my own place and a financial clean slate. Step 2. Social shift. Ethan and I shared a lot of mutual friends, most of whom I genuinely liked. But I knew that when the truth came out, some of them might be tempted to stay neutral. I couldn't risk that, so I started planting seeds. Not lies, just small, undeniable truths. Things have been weird lately, I'd say casually over coffee. Ethan's been distant. I'm starting to wonder if there's someone else. I never accused. I never made a scene. I just let the facts speak for themselves. And slowly, people started noticing the inconsistencies in Ethan's stories too. By the time the truth came out, the court of public opinion was already leaning in my favor. Step 3. The evidence. I organized every screenshot, message and photo into a single well-labeled folder on a USB drive. Photos of Ethan and Vanessa together, text messages where he promised her weekends once he was free. Notes from our couples therapy sessions where he swore there was no one else. I also drafted a short, calm message, nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, to send to Vanessa if I ever decided to. Something like, "Hi Vanessa. I just thought you should know the man you're planning a future with. It's the same man I've been living with and dating for 4 years. Here's the proof. Good luck." I wasn't sure if I would send it, but just having it ready gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt in months. Step 4. The perfect exit with everything in place. I picked a date. It was symbolic, the anniversary of the day we first met. Ethan was planning a romantic dinner, probably thinking it would be a fresh start. What he didn't know was that it would be the last time we'd ever speak. I spent the days leading up to it writing a letter. Not an angry one, not a tearful one. Just a simple, factual account of everything he'd done, how I found out, and why I was walking away. I ended it with a single sentence. I hope she's worth everything you've lost. And then I waited. The calm before the storming those final days. I felt strangely peaceful. There was no more anxiety. No more late-night crying sessions. No more wondering what I'd done wrong. Because I knew the truth. I hadn't done anything wrong. He had made his choices. And now he was about to face the consequences. I looked at Ethan differently that week. Not as the man I once loved, but as a character in a story I was about to end. And every time he smiled at me, every time he kissed me goodnight, I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he had no idea what was coming. He thinks he's still in control, I whispered to myself one night, watching him scroll through his phone beside me. But he's already lost. The night had finally arrived. Our 4-year anniversary, a date that used to mean candlelight dinners, heartfelt notes, and promises of forever. Now, it was the day I had chosen to end the story once and for all. Ethan thought this night was about us. A new beginning, a chance to start over. For me, it was about closure, about taking back every ounce of power he had stolen from me. One quiet lie at a time, a perfect performance. I spent hours getting ready, carefully selecting the red dress he once said he loved. My makeup was flawless, my hair styled just the way he liked. If you saw me that night, you'd think I was a woman deeply in love, ready to celebrate another chapter with the man of her dreams. But behind the eyeliner and lipstick was a woman with a mission. When he arrived at the restaurant, a fancy rooftop place with twinkling lights and a city view, he brought roses, 12 of them. "One for each season we've been together," he said, smiling like the perfect boyfriend. I smiled back. "That's sweet," I whispered, even as my heart remained cold. We ordered dinner. He toasted 2 new beginnings. And when he reached across the table to hold my hand, I let him because I wanted this illusion to last just long enough. The letter halfway through dessert, I pulled out a small white envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. "Before we toast to the future," I said softly, "I want you to read this." He looked curious, maybe even touched, as he tore it open. The first page started innocently enough. I thanked him for the good memories. I mentioned how much I'd once believed in us. Then the tone shifted. Line by line, I laid out the truth. How I knew about Vanessa, the exact dates of their trips, screenshots of his messages, a list of every lie he'd ever told, matched with evidence. By the time he reached the second page, the color had drained from his face. He looked up, stammering. "Where did you get this? Does it matter?" I asked calmly. I know everything. The silence between us was heavy. He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away the public reveal. Wait, we can talk about this, he whispered urgently, glancing around. Actually, I said, raising my voice just enough for the nearby tables to hear. I think we're done talking. I stood up. My voice stayed calm, not loud, not hysterical, just clear. Everyone. I announced, turning to face the room. I'd just like to congratulate my boyfriend of 4 years for planning a proposal, while secretly dating someone else. A few heads turned. Some people gasped. Ethan's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. I hope Vanessa says yes, I added, sliding the envelope back toward him. She deserves to know who she's really with. And with that, I walked away, not running, not crying, just walking, because I had already shed my tears long before this moment. The aftermath begins. I didn't go home that night. I'd already packed a bag days earlier and arranged to stay with a friend. When I walked into her apartment, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. By the time Ethan realized I wasn't coming back, the rest of my plan was already in motion. The next morning, he texted me 14 times. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I can explain. I didn't reply to a single one. Then came the calls from mutual friends. Apparently, Vanessa had seen the evidence because I had anonymously emailed her the folder with every screenshot and photo. According to one mutual acquaintance, the engagement was on hold indefinitely. The ripple effect. A week later, word started to spread. Ethan wasn't just dealing with a breakup, he was facing social fallout. Friends who once admired him now avoided him. His coworkers, many of whom followed Vanessa on social media, whispered behind his back. The confident, charming man I once knew now looked hollow and small. And the best part? I didn't have to lift another finger. The truth was doing all the work for me. The final blow 3 weeks later. I returned to the apartment for the final time, not to reconcile, but to collect my remaining things. Ethan was there, waiting. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usual cocky grin was gone. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I set down the box I was carrying. There's nothing left to say. I made a mistake, he said. I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed. Not cruelly, but sadly. You didn't make a mistake, Ethan. You made a series of choices. And now you're living with them. He stepped closer. I miss you. I took a deep breath and looked him in the eyes one last time. You don't miss me. You miss the version of yourself you were when I still trusted you. But that version is gone, and so am I. Then I turned and walked out for good. Reflection. People think revenge is about anger, about burning everything down just to watch it crumble. But for me, it was never about that. It was about restoring balance, about showing someone that actions have consequences, that betrayal doesn't go unnoticed, and that the person you thought you could manipulate might just be 10 steps ahead of you. In the end, I didn't destroy Ethan. I simply handed him the mirror and let him destroy himself. And as I closed the door on that chapter of my life, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't rage, it's freedom. And I had finally, beautifully, completely set myself free. It's strange how silence feels after a storm. For weeks, my life had been chaos, secrets unraveling, plans forming, truths being exposed. But after I walked out of that apartment for the last time, there was nothing but quiet. And for the first time in months, the quiet felt good. I wasn't waking up to anxiety anymore. I wasn't obsessively checking his messages or wondering what he was hiding. I wasn't waiting for lies to fall out of his mouth. The chapter was closed. And with that closure came something I hadn't felt in a very long time: peace. The first days of freedom, the first few days after leaving, were harder than I expected. It's not that I missed Ethan. I didn't. I missed the routine, the familiar, the idea of us that I had built in my head. Sometimes I'd wake up and instinctively reach for my phone to text him, only to stop myself. Other times, I'd pass by places we used to go together and feel a pang of sadness. But then I'd remind myself, that sadness wasn't about losing him. It was about losing the version of me who believed I was loved the way I deserved, and that version of me deserved better. Rediscovering myself for years. My world had revolved around Ethan, my decisions, my plans, even my free time, all shaped by his wants and needs. I hadn't realized how much of myself I had lost until he was gone, so I started small. I took a solo weekend trip to a nearby city, something I'd always wanted to do but he never had time for. I signed up for a painting class. I started journaling again. At first, it felt awkward, but slowly, piece by piece, I started rebuilding myself not as someone's girlfriend, not as someone's second choice, but as me. Conversations and closure a few weeks later, I met up with one of our mutual friends, Sarah. She had been distant since the breakup, but now she wanted to talk. I don't know how you stayed so calm through all of this, she said as we sat at a cafe. I think if it were me, I'd still be angry. I smiled. Oh, I was angry. But I realized anger only hurts me if I hold on to it. I don't want to give him that power anymore. Sarah nodded slowly. He's not doing great, by the way. I sipped my coffee and listened without saying a word. Apparently, Vanessa had broken things off. Word had spread about his double life. And his carefully crafted image, the charming, reliable guy, was falling apart. But instead of satisfaction, all I felt was indifference, because it wasn't my problem anymore. A moment of reflection one evening. I found myself scrolling through old photos, the trips we took, the birthdays we celebrated, the smiles that now felt like lies. And I did something that surprised even me. I deleted them all. Not out of anger, not to erase the past, but because I no longer needed those reminders. They were part of a story that had ended, and I was ready to write a new one that night. I wrote a single line in my journal. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering who I was before it did. Learning to trust again. Months passed. Seasons changed. And with each passing week, I felt lighter, stronger, more myself. One afternoon, while attending a friend's birthday party, I met someone, a guy named Liam. He was kind, thoughtful, patient, and unlike Ethan. He never made me question my worth. But even then, I was cautious. Trust wasn't something I was willing to give away easily anymore. I took things slow, not because of fear, but because I had finally learned how valuable my heart was. Liam respected that, and in time, I found myself smiling for reasons that had nothing to do with revenge or closure, but simply because I was happy. The unexpected message nearly a year later, Ethan reached out. It was a short message, an apology, typed at 2:17 a.m. I know I don't deserve a reply, but I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're doing okay. I stared at it for a long moment. Old me might have answered. Old me might have sought validation or closure, but new me, I just smiled and deleted the message because I didn't need his apology anymore. The closure I once craved was something I had already given myself. The lesson looking back now, I don't regret anything, not even the pain, because that pain taught me who I am. It showed me my strength. It forced me to rebuild, to set boundaries, to love myself enough to walk away from someone who couldn't love me, right? And maybe that's the irony of betrayal. It shatters you. It breaks every illusion. But in the aftermath, it also reveals a version of yourself that's unshakable. Today, I'm not defined by what Ethan did. I'm defined by how I rose after it. And if there's one lesson I'd share with anyone going through something similar, it's this. The best revenge isn't making them regret losing you. It's becoming someone who would never tolerate them again. Time has a strange way of healing wounds you once thought would never close. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no dramatic moment when the pain just disappears. Instead, it fades little by little, replaced by strength, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of who you are. When I look back on everything now, it almost feels like I'm watching someone else's life. A girl who loved too deeply, trusted too blindly, and forgave too easily. And maybe I was that girl once, but I'm not her anymore. What betrayal teaches you betrayal is devastating, not just because someone lied to you, but because it forces you to question yourself. It makes you wonder if you weren't enough, if you did something wrong, if love is even real. But here's the truth I learned the hard way. Betrayal says everything about them, and nothing about you. It reveals their character, not your worth. It exposes their weakness, not your flaws. And it teaches you in the most painful way that you deserve so much more than what you were willing to settle for. Strength you didn't know you had. Used to think strength was about holding things together, about forgiving, enduring, and never giving up. But real strength, I've learned, is knowing when to walk away. It's in choosing peace over chaos. It's in letting go of someone you still love because you finally love yourself more. It's in rebuilding from the ashes of what they destroyed and rising even higher than before. And that's what I did. I built a new life. One built not on lies or broken promises, but on self-respect, boundaries, and hope. A final message to anyone hurting: if you're listening to my story and you're going through something similar, if someone betrayed you, lied to you, or shattered your trust, I want you to know this: you will be okay. It won't happen overnight. There will be days when it still hurts. There will be moments when you question everything. But one day you'll wake up and realize that the pain doesn't control you anymore. You'll laugh again. You'll trust again. You'll love again, not because you need someone to complete you, but because you've already learned how to be whole on your own. The new beginning today. I don't hate Ethan. I don't wish him pain. Honestly, I hope he grows just like I did. Because in the end, our story isn't about revenge or destruction. It's about transformation. His betrayal broke the girl I was, but it also created the woman I am now. And that woman, she's stronger, she's wiser, and she will never accept less than she deserves again. Final words. Sometimes the worst thing someone does to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you because it pushed you to become the version of yourself you were always meant to be.